Hello, I'm Lauren, and welcome to Improving the World. I'm an international improviser based in Hong Kong, and I talk to amazing women of improv all over the world. Today, I talk to Noha Mousbah. She is of Egyptian descent and is in Stockholm, Sweden, and we talk about the long-form dramatic improv that she does. I'm talking deep and dark and meaningful. I feel like I just contradicted that with that weird description. I'm so sorry. It really is cool stuff. And also we talk about diversity in improv, but more so in the Stockholm scene and where she's improvised. Good, juicy improv chat coming your way. I hope you enjoy. Hello.
Hello.
Now, Noha, you are an improviser and an instructor and doing improv in many different places, Dubai, Spain, where you are in Sweden. You've got a really nice diverse selection of improv background experiences. Today, we're talking about drama and diversity in improv, hence why I'm in this theater with this dude who's stealing my thunder. I want to talk about the fact that you do dramatic improv, but furthermore long form. So no chuckles required, but also encouraged if it happens. What's long form dramatic improv? Tell me about that.
Yes, I do all types of improv, but there's a lot of improvised drama that I do. It's a series of scenes intertwined in one way or another, so it's a long form. There's no focus on it being comedic. We often play very realistic characters. We try to find a depth in the characters. Obviously, there's always laughter. You say one line that goes wrong, or just the regular things that happen within improv, whether you try to or not. But there's really no focus on it being a comedy show, and we market our shows as, if you've got the Stockholm Syndrome, for example, which is one of our shows, we market it as being with a lot of anxiety and dysfunctional families. I do a show called Unspoken with my own group, Paraphrase, and we work with silences. It's an improv show where we play characters with a depth, very often slow pace as well, if you compare it to the comedic shows.
For someone who hasn't seen improv like that, would you tell people that it's more like seeing theater or a movie or TV show? Does it feel like that, or is it a different genre? Is it not the same?
No, we don't compare it to a TV show, but if I would try to explain it to someone who hasn't seen improv, I think it's more similar to scripted theater, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I like improvised drama so much, because I started off doing scripted theater. I love scripted theater. It feels like it's a really nice combination of the two, of the playfulness of improv, how liberating it is, how creative it is, the teamwork that you've got within improv, the flat organization of an improv compared to scripted theater. But then it also has the depth and the story, the character work that you often find within scripted.
Yeah. Because of the fact that you're doing something that potentially is very deep, you're getting into family drama stuff, tumultuous territory. Does that mean that the audience is reacting in a different way? So if you do a show which maybe is a little bit lighter, you're going to have people just chortling themselves silly and then off they pop. But for this, do you have people stay and violently weep? I mean, I assume and hope that they bring tissues and they're just invested in popcorn. I mean, does it feel like that?
Definitely tissues. Yeah, that's where we get our money. We sell tissues. Yeah. No. But there's definitely a different reaction from the audience. While on stage, you can see and hear tears. You don't actually hear the tears, you're weeping, but you see the tears and you can hear the, sort of reactions. And also something that's quite specific to our audience at Stockholm's Improvisational Theatre, where I'm based in Stockholm. The audience, there's a silence, and not a silence of them being bored or not being focused. They're so focused, they're so in it that they don't dare to make a single little sound. And when they do, it's more of a sort of thing. And then you just feel it. You sort of feel the energy being different from the audience. The shows that we've played abroad at festivals, whether it was Stockholm Syndrome or Unspoken, which are the two shows that I've played most often abroad, you get the same reactions, which is quite different from a short form where they're engaged in a different way.
I pity the improv group that is comedically focused and has to follow you at a festival. I just picture 45 weeping people who stay for whatever reason in this festival, and then comes this group of matching t-shirts. They're like, all right, everyone.
Surprise!
I'm not ready for this. What's interesting to me about theater, performance, improv, which is different than maybe some other art forms, is that, okay, so I go see the movies and then the movies finish and like I'm gone. If I do an improv show or a theater show, the audiences will often stay and they want to have a chat afterwards. Do you talk to your audiences and do they want to talk about that really deep stuff that you get into in the dramas? Does it engage good conversation?
Definitely. I've had conversations that have made me cry. I recall this one person in the audience who, after a show, came up to me and was like, I need to talk to you. I was like, okay. And then we didn't manage to talk that moment. So he came a little later and then he just sort of pulled me from my hand and was like, we need to sit down and talk. And I was like, okay, what's going on?
You didn't know them? Okay.
No, I mean, before that, I didn't know them, but now I do. And yeah, we sat down and he was just saying how the show that we had just played affected him so much and was a true reflection of his own family and what he's gone through, and that he could see that on stage. And he was like, I'm never going to forget this show because it was like part of my life being played up on stage. It was just so big for me to hear that I could get up on stage together with my colleagues and put on an improvised show that could affect someone that much. I've also had conversations with people saying, these things happen. We were playing a very dysfunctional family and they're like, these things happen and it's so tough to see it. We almost couldn't bear seeing it, but we know this actually happens in real life and it's really important for it to be played up on the stage.
If you're comfortable sharing, can you tell me you don't have to tell me about these people's stories, but are you comfortable talking about some of the topics that got brought up, the tough things that because so I'm guessing and I'm thinking like abuse and arguments and like marriages exploding and things like that. Is that the territory that you're in?
Yeah. And in those two specific examples, there was actually incest in one of the shows. There was a lot of incest. It was different types of incest. And the other show was it was a dysfunctional family. It was a dysfunctional father who had then passed away and how the rest of the family was dealing with the aftermath of that.
Do you leave these shows feeling like it's been a cathartic experience, or does it give weight and gravity and you walk away and you're like, oh my gosh, I require chocolate? Do you feel affected personally? Is it like another show or is it affecting for you?
I mean, it does affect me, but I've also learned to separate. Like, this is a show. I have used real feelings. I have used real moments from my own life and from my friends' lives, but it's a show. And I was playing a character. I wasn't playing myself. I drew things from me and from other people who I know, but it's still a character and this is fictional. And this was actually a conversation I had with one of the audience members of how do you sort of separate? How do you say, this is a character, I play it with depth, I do use real feelings, but it's still just a character that I need to leave once I'm off stage. It affects me to a certain extent, but I've learned to sort of leave that on stage and go on.
I always feel like this with improv, but I feel like the work that you're doing could be such a good catalyst for healthy conversations, which it sounds like some of these are happening off the back of your shows. I'm wondering, you as someone who identifies as of non-European descent, and you are in Stockholm, a city that is decently international and interwoven with lots of different backgrounds and peoples, the art scene itself is more homogenous, yeah? So how does that feel? Talk to me about being you in that art scene.
Mm-hmm. I've got mixed feelings. In one way, it's great to be able to represent people of non-European descent on an improv stage. I'm always flattered when other theaters, because I'm based in Stockholm's improvisational theater, but I'll get calls from other theaters, or I got a call from someone teaching at a university once, at the Stockholm University, who said, we need someone of non-European descent because our students are actually complaining that we're just sending white people the whole time. We've also had companies, because I do applied improv, who said, you can't send us two white men. Our workplace is diverse and we need a diverse troupe coming from your improv.
Well, hurrah for those requests.
Yeah,
thank you.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah. I am flattered when someone says, we have this project and we really need to show diversity. But it also feels like, hold on, I can't be the only one or one of very, very few who can represent the diversity that's actually here in the city. I've played characters of Middle Eastern descent who are Muslim. I've done a Muslim prayer on stage, which was done for the very first time on a stage that's been there for over 30 years doing improv. And so it's beautiful being told, oh, you're a pioneer for doing this. We've never had this before. And, you know, to have a discussion in the troupe afterwards of, oh, what did that feel like? And me going through my fears of when I was about to do that prayer, I was worried that the rest of you wouldn't really know how to deal with it or what to do. Or our musician came up to me afterwards and said, I played music while you were praying. Was that okay? Was that offensive? Did that, you know, and have these types of discussions. It's great to be able to be part of that movement or that change. But at the same time, it feels like, really, we're only doing this now? You know, improv has been here for over 30 years and it's only now that this is being shown on stage.
Your musician came up to you and said, I don't want to be offensive. Did you start conversations with the troupe about more diverse casting? Does it have the audience members come up to you after you lead a prayer or do a prayer for yourself as character? Did they come up and say things? And does the diversity in the city who's watching this, who maybe isn't represented on stage, but then you represent on stage or give some voice to, do those conversations change?
Definitely. That scene with the prayer, it's actually funny because I said that my character was called Fatima and then I started praying and she was a Muslim character. But other than that, I mean, had you not seen her pray, you wouldn't have thought of her being any different than anybody else on that stage, which, you know, people said afterwards was liberating, that it wasn't like, oh, I'm this Muslim person and all I do is go around and be Muslim. But, you know, how that...
What does that mean? What does going around and being Muslim mean? I love, like,
I don't know.
Only eating hummus. Like, I don't know what.
But yeah, I was like, oh, my name's Fatima, and I did that prayer. And then funnily enough, that day, a woman came up to me from the audience and she was like, hi, that was a proper prayer. Like, you were doing it the right way. And I was like, yeah, I know. And she was like, yeah, hi, by the way, my name's Fatima. And I was like, what? Out of all the names in the world, you don't get to see that. So I will never forget that because I felt like, oh my God, she felt represented on stage. And then we've talked about it in the improv community. I feel that you need to represent everybody on stage so that people in the audience feel like they're being represented. But also, we talk so much about improv being this open, welcoming community. But if you go and all you see is white, straight, just very homogenous people on stage the whole time, it's tougher to feel welcome. It's tougher to feel like you're allowed to be part of this community because it'll feel like, no, it's just for these white people who are just all the same. We've talked about that and the fears that people have of like, wait, hold on, my name's John. I can't get up there and play an Ahmed and play a Muslim. And what if I do something wrong? What if I do something offensive? And if I'm going to play this character, then I'm just going to play this really boring sort of same character that does nothing wrong because otherwise I could get criticized for it. I think that we need to represent the different people in the society and that it might be, you know, we will make mistakes, that it will go a little wrong to start off with. I mean, I have my colleagues who've been doing improv for I don't know how many years, over 30 years, who were saying what it was like to first play people with a different sexual orientation. And they were like, oh, at first we were doing the weirdest things. We were doing things that, you know, we would never do that now. It went so wrong.
Lots of hummus.
Yeah, exactly. They needed to start off there for them to get where they are today. At the same time, I realize the complexity and I realize how sensitive it can be. I mean, I am of that descent. So it's, you know, I guess it's easier for me to say, oh, we need to play these characters. Well, maybe if you would bring in another ethnicity or background, then I would be a bit like, oh, what if it goes wrong? I wouldn't dare do. So I realize it's easier for me to say than for someone who's not of my descent. But I just feel like we need to represent people for them to feel welcome in this community.
Whether or not John's gonna screw it up, it's important that he tries, especially, I guess, if he's coming from a kind place, right? So coming from an unkind place, no thanks, John. But if he's going to come from a solid foundation of honest attempt and the fact that we always fail in improv and that we give space for that, then we're going to give John a thumbs up and we're going to support him. And I would also maybe add within that context, in a troupe setting, if John is trying and we respect and know that he's trying, he's screwing it up, it's the job of everyone to help make John look good and to steer him right and to lend to that conversation or that character some rightness so that when he does bollocks it up a bit, there's support for him and he's not just out alone like, no, you want to do it, walk the tightrope alone, John.
Right? Look at racist John going wrong. It's really tough to say how to do it best to sort of get it right, because there's a screw up and then there's a screw up. If you do it with respect and you're trying to find a balance, but then it sort of goes a little wrong, it's different than you just...
Caution to the wind. Yeah.
It's a tough question, but I just feel like it's a bigger risk to then not go there at all and just continue to have this white scene forever and ever than to make attempts, have discussions afterwards. And, you know, what did that feel like? And did this go right? Did this go wrong? I've seen it being done with other ethnicities where we afterwards say, oh, wait, hold on, you were in that Chinese restaurant and then you started speaking in a way that didn't feel quite right. You know, maybe we should do it this way next time. So we're already having these conversations, but I guess some backgrounds are riskier and scarier than others. We've also had the discussion of why is it so easy for us to do a French accent or an Italian accent, but it gets really scary when we're doing an Indian accent. And what can we do with this character to make it less of a flat character that's just speaking with an Indian accent? Add to the flesh of this character and it will make more sense. It will feel less wrong. It's a bigger problem to not represent. I had a Black friend of mine who said, you know, every time I come to the theater, I'm the only Black person in there. I've never seen anybody else who's Black, and it feels strange. Yeah.
Taking this discussion about diversity within the improv scene context, maybe the first one to tell you this, but you're not only your ethnic background, everyone. So you, because of all the parts of you, so you in your improv context as well are a person who identifies as a woman or female. How does that feed into the work that you're doing? Pretty much the world over, improv has been and still is, but is shifting. More white men doing and teaching, performing, and getting media visibility. What does it look like for you in terms of being a female improviser? Then furthermore, someone who is a woman of color in a place that is a very homogenous scene.
In Sweden, or Stockholm specifically, we're quite lucky with when it comes to equality. We've come quite far in general. We still have a long way to go. We're not there yet, but you know, everything's relative. So compared to many other countries, we've come really far. And you can also see that on the improv scene, where I've had discussions with colleagues from other countries where they say, oh, it's really tough finding good female improvisers, you know, for school, right? And I'm like, wait, no, what? We don't have that issue. The artistic directors are mainly white men, so are the owners of the theaters in general. I guess the problem isn't as big as it is in other countries, so in that way we're lucky. It's also a risk though, because sometimes you feel like, oh, we've come far, we can just sit back and relax. And really, that's not the case. We often fall into the stereotypes of what a woman should be like on stage, and also how we speak off stage. We still have issues there. But to me personally, what it does is that I've got two layers. I've got the problems that women within improv face and in the world face. And then added to that, I'm also of non-European descent.
2 layers, that's all you're allowed. You've reached the max.
Okay.
No more. Okay. That's it. You are not a baklava, only 2 layers.
Okay. Now I know. I'm part of a project called Project E, female improvisers from different countries in Europe. And we had a meeting in Bydgoszcz in Poland, and we were talking about what it's like for women in improv and the challenges that we face and the changes we'd like to see. I realized that I agree to a lot of what's being said, and I'm like, yeah, I've got that issue too. You know, I end up playing the girlfriend or the wife. It's just easy to get into these, woman roles. And off stage, I've noticed that when we're talking, if a woman makes a mistake, she's very apologetic and sort of, oh, sorry, I thought you meant this. I must have misunderstood, while the male improvisers are more like, oh yeah, no, this was happening. And there's no sort of, oh, I misunderstood or I must have misheard. Those types of subtle things that we talked about that in the group. And then I always had the added layer of, I'm not ethnically Swedish. I've thought about that with the names that I give myself or that others give me on stage. They're always typically ethnically Swedish names. And my real name isn't a Swedish name. Why am I always called Sarah or Anna or whatever it is? It adds another layer to it all.
Third layer, Did you have your awareness peaked circumstantially since you've been in Sweden because you've moved around? Or is it something that's been on the periphery of your awareness forever and you're in these various places and you're always thinking about this? Or is it something that a light switch and you were like, wait a minute?
I've thought about it for a long time in my previous jobs as well, but some things changed. I'm trying to think what changed. Maybe it's the realization of how much I've been affected by it. I can realize certain things. I can realize that, oh, I'm playing certain roles or I'm speaking in a certain way, even off stage with my male colleagues. But then it's another step to actually make the change. And I think something's happened there where I've realized that I don't want to say I'm part of the problem, but because it sounds wrong, but because I've been brought up in the patriarchy and in the society that we're in and on this earth, I see things in a certain way. And I'm now realizing that I don't always agree with myself or my actions. Like I've put on these glasses now and it's making things so clear right now that it's tough to sort of ignore things or let things just pass the same way I did before. I think that might be the difference, that I've realized many of these things before, but I'm like, oh, well, this is the way it is. Let's get on with life. And now I'm like, wait, hold on. It doesn't need to be like this. And we need to make a change. And I'm definitely not there yet. I'm definitely still doing things that I would rather women weren't doing or people of non-European descent weren't doing. But I'm not going to change overnight.
Change management, diversity, inclusion, glasses, like, wait, screech, and then you put them on. You're like, what? So
yeah,
referencing back to what you were saying earlier about being in a theater space. And so you're like, there's space for me there because I see myself being represented. So there's maybe a difference in what you see and what you can do based on what you've seen and maybe this discourse itself happening. And I don't know, let's give some credit to #MeToo and a bunch of other different things, Project Eve that you mentioned that you're part of, these different discussions happening, lending more thought, like people coming to you after the show, they've seen something suddenly given weight and like a minute and they go, do you know what? I'm aware of this outside my blinders, but suddenly it's in the blinders in this new prescription and I can choose change. But then also, of course, that's, like you said, super hard. It's not just awareness, it's awareness and the act of doing, which is way more complex, no?
Yeah. Also, what's affected me is that in my previous jobs, I was working with very multicultural groups of people, helping companies expand across the world. So there's a lot of international work happening there. And I was meeting people from all over the world. And I wasn't as focused on just the art scene. You know, what I'm saying with the challenges in Stockholm, that's not just with an improv. You know, we've got the same issues with scripted theater and film and all arts. I think maybe that's helped me sort of, oh, right.
Noha, what are your words of wisdom, please, if you could speak? Yes.
Wow.
Yes. If you could speak to the younger version of you, those in the improv community, your peers, and those who are your potential peers in the future, and the people on the internet who just find us, they're curious about improv and they watch this video and they've made it to the end. Thanks. What are your words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. My younger self and what she would need to hear. Be yourself. Don't adjust yourself to fit into what's already there. Adjust what's already there for it to work for you. And feel comfortable with who you are, with all that entails, including all mistakes and everything that doesn't seem perfect.
That's big.
Don't take life too seriously because it's gonna end at some point. So have some fun with it. I know that's a bit morbid in there.
Drama.
That's my words of wisdom. Be yourself. Enjoy being yourself. Don't adapt so that other people will accept you. Accept yourself and they'll accept you.
Thank you. Thank you kindly. That was very nice. It's a lovely place to bring us to a close. If people are in Stockholm, just generally in the Nordic regions, and they're like, oh, maybe I'll go to Stockholm and see what Noha's up to, how can people find you? They want to see Stockholm Syndrome. They want to buy you an IKEA meatball, hang out and throw money at you. How do they find you?
Maybe it's easiest if I provide my email address. Would that make sense?
Well, if you want that on YouTube, totally.
Oh, not on YouTube. The theater that I'm based at is called Stockholm's Improvisational Theater, www.improv.a.se. And then I've got Instagram, if somebody would like to find me personally. My name is Noha Mousbah. Yes.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Lauren. This has been lovely.
Yes, I quite agree. And this guy still hasn't gotten the clue. Get out of here. All right.
Slow guy.
My theater. He's very slow. I stapled his shoes to the floor. But lovely to chat with you. You as well. All right, all this is Improving the World, and there's more where that came from. Bye-bye. So, did you love the video? If you did, please say kind and wonderful things in the comments down below. And you could subscribe if you're feeling super sassy. And look for more Improving the World.